evening and welcome to Resistance TV. I'm on my own this evening, so I hope you can see me and you can hear me well enough. Tonight it's the 1st of June, and so happy 1st of June. I'm looking forward to the summer, although here in Manchester it's still a bit cloudy and rainy. So we're still looking forward to that. This evening I'm going to be talking to Pete Gregson, who's one of our Resist members from Scotland, and he's based in Edinburgh. And Pete is the founder of an organisation called CABA, which is the Campaign Against Bogus Anti-Semitism. Pete's been working tirelessly for many, many years for the Palestinian people, and he's tried to set up organisations to help people in Gaza to earn money over the internet, and many other things. And his latest project is to try and raise the profile of Palestine by twinning Gaza with Edinburgh. So I'd like to welcome in Pete.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Pete. Welcome to the show. As I'm on my own this evening, I wonder if somebody in the audience can just say that they can hear me. Everything looks okay. Everything's fine. I can see Paul McCord is there. Hi, Paul. Hi, Atcha John. I don't know if Lizzie's going to be joining us to do some moderation, but that would be good. Let's just start off, Pete, by saying if you can introduce yourself. I did a little introduction, but I'm sure there's more that you would like to tell our audience this evening. And can you tell us a little bit more about CABA and why you founded it?
Okay. My name is Pete Gregson. From Aberdeen, but I live in Edinburgh. I was in the Labour Party for about 38 years until I got levered out over bogus anti-Semitism. But I've been campaigning for Palestine. I mean, I think I really found out what was going on there about 1980 when I was traveling around Africa and I was being a bit of a hippie and dressing like an Arab and speaking Arabic and trying to mingle, you know. That was in Sudan. That's where I really found out. I didn't get as far as Palestine. I came back from Sudan, Egypt. But I mean, that's when I really began to know there was something happening that I didn't know about before, because in Britain, you know, we've only ever had the Israeli narrative. All my best friends at university were students, but were Jews. We didn't talk about Palestine. Didn't even know Palestine existed. It was just Israel. So it was a bit of an eye-opener, really, beginning to understand how what was going on there. But the campaign against bogus anti-Semitism, that's been going only since February, actually. I was originally in Labour Against the Witch Hunt, and I did try to get Labour Against the Witch Hunt to do the same things that we're doing with Campaign Against Bogus Anti-Semitism. But unfortunately, I got expelled from Labour Against the Witch Hunt. I've been expelled from everything, really. I mean, I could give you a list of length of the things I've been expelled and fired from, not just
So
about criticising Israel.
Why did they expel you from law?
Well, that was Tony Greenstein. He was kind of angry with me because I'd gone to an event. I've been the only trade unionist ever to be expelled for criticising Israel. That was thanks to Rhea Wolfson, who's big in Momentum, and she was a Zionist. And I didn't realise when I wrote to the National Executive Committee in the Labour Party, asking them not to adopt the IHRA, that I was actually writing to John Landsman and Rhea Wolfson that were Zionists. And I didn't realise that she was in the GMB as well. In fact, she was in the Scottish GMB. So she basically told the Scottish secretary to boot me out because I was criticising Israel. And I even had a rabbi, you know, this lovely man, this Rabbi Cohen.
Oh, yeah, Rabbi Cohen. He was very good with me as well. He's a lovely man.
Yeah, he lives near Manchester.
He does, yeah. He's absolutely wonderful.
And he's been attacked for criticising Israel. You know, he's had his car burnt out and shit through his letterbox, and he's terrible. He's a lovely guy, and he's to be suffered for what, you know, just because he thinks Israel shouldn't exist. I mean, anyway, so he came to hear him, but they wouldn't listen. So the GMB expelled me. At that point, I was becoming a bit of, you know, law were quite keen on me because I was a trade unionist and because I was getting expelled and that. And things were going really well. But I was invited to a talk by a group called 9/11 Keep Talking. And they've had all sorts of people on. They've had Piers Corbyn, Jeremy's brother, about climate. He doesn't believe in climate change. All sorts of people. Miko Peled they had on, but they had me on. But they also had a Holocaust denier on the month before. Colostrom, I think his name is.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Yes, I've heard of him.
And the thing was that I didn't know, and in fact I didn't have a. I mean, I would speak to. I mean, I'm Scottish. I speak to anyone. I speak to a Holocaust denier because I'd say, well, you're wrong, and I would discuss with him because he had this theory about Auschwitz about the fact that the walls weren't blue enough, and if you do a bit of the science, you realise why he's wrong. But this wasn't really good enough for Tony Greenstein because this guy, another guy that knew him, had written an article about Herzl. Herzl was the kind of granddaddy of Israel. He kind of invented Israel. He was the first person to speak of having a Zionist country back in 1870, and it was a really good piece. And the guy mentions as a side event, about this Nick Colostrom. Anyway, Tony said, take that down, because I had it on a change.org petition. Then I said, no. I said, I've said it's toxic, but I think there's interesting information in there. I've said which bit's toxic. No, that wasn't good enough. And they had a meeting and they expelled me. Well, it was quite a big, there was about 45 people came, and it was like 20 wanted me out, and 15 said I could stay, and Ken Livingston and Mackie Machover, well, they abstained. But I mean, I got expelled. So that was
well,
a bit.
Let's just clear up. Let's just clear it up now. Then, you are not a Holocaust denier, are you, Pete?
No. I mean, I kind of stuck my neck out. It's Ilan Pappé. He said, breach the IHRA. Whatever you do, breach the IHRA. Israel's a racist endeavor. That's breaching the IHRA. I said Israel exaggerates the Holocaust for political reasons. And folk thought I'd gone too far, but this is another breach of the IHRA. You're not allowed to say anything about Israel and the Holocaust. And I said it was for political reasons. And when I say exaggerate, I was meaning like they don't mention anyone else that died. If you look at these courses at Tel Aviv University, they don't mention anyone apart from Jews. It's all the Russians and Poles. They didn't count. They didn't die. They didn't matter, and that's exaggeration. It's not swelling the numbers, but it's talking about it's overemphasizing. That's another meaning of the word exaggerate.
Well, that's what happened to Jackie Walker as well, wasn't it? I mean, she
was different because she had Jewish ancestors.
She did, but she was talking about the Holocaust and the fact that the Holocaust or Holocaust Memorial Day doesn't include all the people who were genocided in countries like Africa, Armenia, and all these other places. And that was why Jackie was expelled.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I have to use the word conspiracy because in 2011 they had the Big Tent for Israel event in Manchester, where they pulled together Zionists from all over the country and said, we've got to do something because Israel was getting a bad press. And the message was, and it's on our website because someone filmed it, they were saying, go out, get into the trade unions, get into the Labour Party, get into the BBC, get into all the places where opinions about Israel are made and fix it by adopting the IHRA definition, which had been cooked up precisely to stop people criticising Israel. The woman who invented it, Dina Porat, an Israeli academic, went to South Africa in 2002 and said, we don't want to end up like South Africa. We don't want to end up multicultural and everyone, equal. How do we do that? Well, we make criticizing Israel synonymous with Jew hate, which means if you're an anti-racist campaigner like me, you know better than Hitler. That's what they wanted. And they've succeeded. I mean, you look at what happened to Corbyn. They've succeeded. They've succeeded in painting every anti-racist campaigner as a Nazi, which is what they wanted to do. They're very clever, very clever. And now, Keith Starmer's booting out people right, left and centre because, it's a combination of the Labour right and the Zionists at the British Board of Deputies. These are the people that destroyed Corbyn, and he was about as anti-Semitic as a Labrador puppy. This is a joke. This is stupid, but it's terrible. So that's another reason why I was trying to do this twinning campaign with Gaza. 2 or 3
Well,
years ago.
let's
But no,
just
can I just explain the
yeah,
campaign?
sure, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I was getting attacked everywhere I went. Even Labour councillors in Edinburgh were saying, "You're an anti-Semite. You know, we're not going to listen to you." And I went into a deep depression right through COVID. 2 years, I just said, "I'm giving up. I'm not," because my own kids were saying to me, "The Guardian attacked me." Because I'd shared a platform with Holocaust deniers. And I said, "This is shite," to the Guardian. They said, "Well, there was a Holocaust denier in the room and they asked a question." I said, "Yeah, but that's not sharing a platform." And they wouldn't take it down. And it was like Ipso was the same. No one would take anything down. So my friends were saying, "Why do you hate Jews? And why do you deny the Holocaust?" It was rubbish. And I got so depressed, I gave up. I said, "That's it. I'm not going to do any more campaigning. I'm going to stop." And it was quite fortunate that this coincided with COVID because everyone was quiet during COVID. But for 2 years, I didn't do anything. And then in February, this is 2.5 years later, I just tried to join a PSC meeting, Palestine Solidarity Campaign, who had also expelled me for criticizing Israel. And you'll notice the PSC don't criticize Israel. They're very keen on supporting Palestine, but they don't like criticizing Israel because they believe in the two-state solution, which I think is a joke. But
Well, I think we're long past that now, aren't we?
So I just tried to sign in to one of these Zoom meetings and I was booted out instantly. I was like expelled. And then I tried to join Edinburgh Action for Palestine and I was expelled. And I was thinking, I can't win. 2.5 years later and I'm getting expelled from everything. I can't go through the rest of my life. I'm 65. I'm not going to spend the next 20 years hiding. So I just thought, fuck it, I'll set up a group that were all the people that I knew that had been kicked out of law. We tried to set up something 2 or 3 years ago called Labour Against Zionist Islamophobic Racism, or LAZIR. It's a bit of a mouthful. And we went to the Labour conference and I got the banner ripped by Zionists, the banner that Corbyn called anti-Semitic, actually featured Corbyn in the banner being attacked by Netanyahu. The whole thing had gone mad. So I just given up because we weren't going to win, I decided. And then I thought, well, I'm going to be 65. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life doing nothing. I'll just get back into campaigning because I quite like doing it. Everyone needs a hobby, don't they?
Well, as long as everyone needs a hobby, but I think you are doing something that's very worthwhile, which brings me on to your Twin Gaza campaign.
Yeah, well, the thing about the campaign against bogus anti-Semitism, it's got a rogues gallery in it. And if you get attacked, I've been trying to get you to go in it for years, Sian, because you had really awful treatment, but you've never gone for it. But I've got people up there. I mean, obviously, people like Jackie Water mentioned, but people up there who've lost their jobs or who've been suspended or have been expelled for criticizing Israel. And I think, you need to shine daylight on this. And I put all the shite about me up there. And that made me feel confident enough to go and do the campaign and to do the twinning with Gaza, because any councillor attacked me, I just sent them straight to the website and I said, well, you read the truth. You read all the GMB minutes. You hear what the rabbi had to say. It's up there. It's published. Don't believe the newspapers. Try and read around it. And it worked. It helped. Well, it helped me anyway, because they stopped attacking me so much because they could see that I had, a rabbi on my side. So I can't be that simple. And that's how I got the twinning with Gaza thing, because we started that 3 years ago. And then with COVID, it all kind of shut down because the council didn't want to discuss it. Their meetings all became like on Zoom and stuff. And then February, I thought, well, I'll resurrect it. And in the meantime, the council had deleted it from the council website. You see, in Edinburgh, we've got this amazing system where any citizen can submit any proposal for the councillors. So most people, it's like dog dirt in the streets, or it's, I want the number 26 bus to come past my house. But I thought, well, I'll just stick one in asking twinning the city with Gaza. And I couldn't believe it. And they said, oh, yeah, well, that's valid. I know it was a nice petitions officer that passed it. And I think the councillors had babies, because I told my 3 councillors about it as soon as I'd set it up. And they said, you must be nuts. What? Gaza? No way. And in fact, a Labour councillor came to me and said, no, we shouldn't twin with Gaza. We should twin with Tel Aviv. They're much more culturally similar. Anyway, so for 3 years, I've just been banging the door, banging the drum. And in February, I just got onto it and we resurrected it. And there were several hundred people who'd signed the petition because I'm relentlessly going around shops with flyers and trying to get people to sign up. And there's a lot of support for Palestine in Scotland because the SNP are big on Palestine because they see themselves as having been colonized by the English. So you know, they understand Israel and they understand that this is a fake country, and they support Palestine. And that's really made a difference. I mean, in the whole of Edinburgh, we've got 500,000 people in Edinburgh. There's 700 Jews. Only 300 of them seem to support Israel. The rest aren't interested. So there's not a lot of opposition. You go to Glasgow, I mean, the Zionists over there are really mad. I mean, they hate me. They're totally, you know, very, very angry, very fired up. That's the Glasgow Friends of Israel, you know, where, what's her name, that BBC political editor, Laura Kunsberg. I mean, she probably comes from that gang. She went to a private school in Glasgow. So there's an influence from Glasgow, but it doesn't touch Edinburgh. And the people in Edinburgh don't want, you know, to be told what to do. And the councillors are quite sympathetic. The Greens, 100% behind it. The Lib Dems, even, amazing, quite supportive. The SNP, quite good. The Labour Party, terrified. You know, 10 years ago, they'd have been right into it. Now they're like, uh-oh, you know, if we support this, are we going to be...
Dare I ask, why do you think they are terrified to support your campaign?
They don't want to talk about Palestine. They know if they talk about Palestine, they'll be expelled, probably, because, you know, Keir Starmer's a great friend of Israel and he's gung-ho. Keir Starmer says that Israel isn't apartheid. The man lives in an alternative universe. This is a problem because people in the Labour Party are terrified of speaking about... It's like the BBC. The BBC in Glasgow said they'll never do an item about Palestine. They won't cover anything I'm doing because the moment they do, the phone explodes. Israel's so organised that they've got, you know, 250,000 Jews all around the UK phoning up the BBC en masse, making a fuss. So you'll notice the mainstream media are terrified to talk about Israel. You know, it was amazing they even reported the killing of Shireen, you know, the journalist, because, you know, that was, I mean, the BBC just called it a conflict. They didn't say that she'd been murdered and shot in the back of the head, you know, by a sniper. Oh, no, they wouldn't say that.
CNN has come out with I don't know if you've seen that report, but CNN has put out in their report a proper investigation into what happened. And they have said it was clearly an IDF sniper.
Yeah. Well, the Americans, I mean, that's the Americans. I mean, the Americans are really far kind of more brave than the Brits. I mean, the other thing about twinning Edinburgh with Gaza is Edinburgh birthed Balfour. Arthur Balfour came from Edinburgh. Not a lot of people know that.
Just tell our audience who Balfour is, because they might not know.
Created Israel, right? Balfour,
Lord Balfour.
Lord Balfour. He was a prime minister for a while. Then he was foreign secretary. He's a Tory. And in 1917, even before Britain had taken Palestine from Turkey, from the Ottoman Empire, we hadn't beaten them in the war yet. But even then, we'd pledged that land to the Zionist Federation. Lord Rothschild, your pal, shouldn't say that. Anyway, Lord Rothschild had got a letter from Balfour saying, we pledge this land to you, on the understanding, of course, that the Palestinians aren't upset about it, but you know what happened to them. And that was it. You know, they handed over the land, and over the succeeding 20 years, up until, you know, the Second World War, the Brits were very strong in Palestine, pushing the Jews to move there. I mean, it was anti-Semitic. Like Hitler was pushing them to Palestine. Churchill was pushing them to Palestine. The whole thing stank, really. I mean, the Zionists were getting money from Hitler through the Havara Agreement. So Hitler would seize property from German Jews and then hand the money to the Zionists to buy German goods. I mean, this is why they couldn't have a boycott of Germany in the Second World War, before the Second World War. So the Zionists caught up in a lot of nasty stuff, but the British have supported them all the way. You know, there was a guy came from Auschwitz in 1942, Jan Karski, Christian. He got out of Auschwitz and he came to Britain to speak to Churchill and said, "Do you know, look what they're doing to the Jews in Poland, in Europe." Hitler wouldn't. Churchill, Freudian. Churchill wouldn't speak to him, wouldn't meet him, wasn't interested. So the Brits were just as anti-Semitic as the Germans, really. I mean, I think at the end of the war, people got a shock when they saw what was happening, but no one was going to sacrifice their lives over dropping some leaflets on Auschwitz saying, you know, we care about you. So this is, I mean, Israel has been created by European anti-Semitism, but no one asked the Palestinians what they wanted. And what you've got now is a really, really extreme right-wing Zionist country that gets worse by the day, and would probably quite like to kill all the Palestinians. That's becoming the norm. So it's getting worse and worse. And the worse it gets, I think, the more aware people get in Britain, maybe, even though they're all terrified of talking about it deep down, secretly. People think it's a bad place. You don't see folk queuing up to go to Israel in the holidays, do you? And the same with America. You know, they're beginning to understand that this is not this is a mess that Britain has created. We've made this mess, but we don't want to know about it. We did a runner in 1947. We ran when it was getting difficult, and we left all our weapons behind. Plus, we left trained battalions. These were the anti-Nazi battalions, trained, highly experienced Jews who had fought in the anti-Nazi battalions for Britain. And we left them with all our weapons. And the next thing was the Nakba. You know, the Palestinians were driven out. We didn't know anything about it, and we cared even less, but we facilitated all that.
Yeah, we certainly did as Brits, and we are responsible.
And that's why I think Palestine needs to get payback. And I think Edinburgh is a good place because Balfour came, and that's why the Israelis hate this Gaza twinning thing, because Gaza's their mortal enemy. And I think, you know, we owe it to people in Gaza to twin because they're suffering more than anyone, I think.
So what benefits do you think it will have to Gaza if this can get through?
Well, there's a good chance it might get through. I mean, the Labour Party keep putting it off. They put it off again today, but they will have to put it eventually on the agenda. It would have, well, at the moment, we're doing this twinning thing. So we haven't got a twinning association. Like all around Britain, there's 44 groups that are twinning anyway. You know, to hell with what the government and the councils do. They're doing twinning activities, and some of them are properly twinned, like Dundee and Nablus. We just model ourselves on what Dundee did. And that dates from 1980, where, you know, that was, I'm trying to remember this politician, what's his name, the one that seems to annoy everybody. Who's
George Galloway?
Yeah, him, right. He set it up in 1980, and, you know, pretty radical even then. But it's been going strong. I mean, they gave Nablus a fire engine last year, and they trained the firefighters. You know, the Scottish Fire Brigade are really into supporting Palestine, so they train firefighters from Nablus, and they come every year. And they also relate on schools. So there's a lot to be done with twinning just by building solidarity with the people who are oppressed. And there's an organization called the Britain-Palestine Friendship and Twinning Network, which is first class. You know, if you want to twin your city with another place, you just start with them, and you just need to reach out to a group in Palestine, and they'll reach back. And
what was that name again, Pete? I'll put it in the chat for people.
Britain-Palestine Friendship and Twinning Network.
Britain-Palestine.
Yeah, Tony Pierce is the chairman, and
Britain-Palestine and
Britain-Palestine Friendship and Twinning Network. And as I say, there's like 44 cities in groups in the UK, and some of them are like us. You know, they haven't managed to twin, but they're still doing the business. They're linking with Palestinians and learning a lot. I mean, Palestinians tell us a lot, teach us a lot. I mean, these people in Gaza, they were building hospitals when we were still living in caves. I mean, Gaza is like 1500 BC. That's 3,500 years old. These people are very sophisticated, and people in Palestine are seen as the kind of intellectuals of the Arab world.
Can I just say thank you to Jarlath Rice for putting the link in the chat for me? Thank you, Jarlath.
Anyway, so that anyone, wherever you live in England, I advise you to try and twin with another group in Palestine, because it's like reaching out. I mean, there's lots of bits of Gaza that haven't been. It's the Gaza Strip. It's got 2 million people. We're only trying to twin with Gaza City, which is about 500,000. So the rest of Gaza is wide open for you to twin with other parts. And the people in Gaza need it more than anything because they've been under siege for 15 years.
I know.
And what we're doing is because the internet, because the Israelis can't control the internet, they've got Facebook. All these Palestinians are on Facebook. You can get one friend on Facebook. I've got 1,000 friends on Facebook from Palestine, and I'm practicing a bit of Arabic on it. And they're dead friendly. They want to know what you're doing. And they're poor, so and PayPal and Facebook won't allow them to run fundraisers So if you want to help someone, you'll set up a fundraiser for them. The money comes to you, and then you pay it through Western Union to them. There's all sorts of things. I'm why they won't let Palestinians do fundraisers is appalling. I mean, it's just outrageous. These people are starving, they're poor, and the world conspires to make them poorer. But they need help, and there are certain websites that are fine. I go to chuffed.org because they don't care if you're supporting Palestine, but other ones like GoFundMe, they wouldn't support my Palestine funder. Oh yeah, we
No,
want you to be a registered charity.
yeah, no, they're very vulnerable to the Israel lobby, let's say. So
Yeah.
if anybody tries to put up something on GoFundMe about Palestine or anything like that, the lobby starts
Yeah.
lobbying
Well,
them and they take it down.
I had an anti-IHRA one trying to raise money for IHRA legal costs, and they let that through. But then they were funny about the pictures. They wouldn't let me put the picture of Corbyn up or something. They said, you can't have that on the front page. So I had to put some of the Nuturi Carter guys on.
Yeah.
They're the ones that hate Israel.
So tonight we're talking to Pete Gregson from Edinburgh. He's the founder of CABO. He's also a Resist member in Scotland, and we're very pleased to have him with us tonight. He's a fantastic campaigner. He's done all sorts in his life, and tonight
I'll tell you a bit more about the twinning.
Yes, I was just going to say we're talking about our twin Gaza for anybody who's only just joined us. So yeah, carry on, Pete.
Well, so the thing that we got excited about, and this wasn't my idea. I mean, none of this is my idea. Even the twinning thing wasn't my idea. It was my friend George's. George Randall, he suggested it. Oh, that's a good idea. No, and again with the internet stuff, it was a guy from Gaza who now lives in Scotland who managed to escape. His name's Wissam Wadi, and Wissam joined our little twinning group. When we started out a few years ago, and he said, he was into the idea of trading on the net, and he'd set up this thing, sort of website, LinkPal, and I was really excited about this because I work in IT, and then I realized that there was coding academies in Gaza because they're isolated, because they can't communicate. They've got a thing called Gaza Sky Geeks. And there's also got G Gateway, and these are funded by charities like Mercy Corps, but they train thousands of people in Gaza. I mean, there's 2 million people there. They train thousands of them in internet skills and web design, web building. So I thought, wait a minute, well, we need websites. The people in Gaza can build websites. Let's get them to do it. And it's amazing. You can get a great website for 500 quid. What here would cost probably 2,000. I mean,
Was
I
it
try
called
to pay them
Skylab,
British.
Pete?
Sorry?
Skylab. It's called Skylab.
Gaza Sky Geeks.
Gaza Sky Geeks.
Yeah. And it's an amazing setup. They're really lovely people. And they're passionate about educating the youth. I mean, over half the population of Gaza, I think, are under 18. I mean, this is what people do when they're all refugees from the Nakba, and they move there and they can't do anything, they can't escape. So people have kids, families are always very big in sort of Arabic culture. And so there's a big youth population, and they're all pretty numerate. I mean, algebra, Gebra, they invented numbers, the Arabs, more or less. Well, not quite, but, they developed a lot of algebra. It's an Arabic word. And so, we're not only doing websites, because they're good at the coding, they're really good at business, and we're trying to train people there to do bookkeeping and accounting. And that would be brilliant, because then everyone needs their books done. I mean, you might only get a website done once every 5 years, but if you're a small business, you need your books done all the time. In Edinburgh, we've got 15,000 Muslims, we've got 3,000 Turks, and they're all sympathetic to Palestine. And we've done one website, which is www.nellenglish.com. And that's an English language it's a Scottish guy that wanted to do teaching English. He was a TEFL teacher, and he had COVID, he couldn't work, and he wanted to teach online. So his was the first website, www.nellenglish.com, and that was built in Gaza, and it's great, and it's lovely, and it's really good. And the guy that built it, Salim, is a genius, and his English isn't that great, so we then moved into doing English classes where we teach them English. And because we all speak English, conversational English doesn't cost anything. You don't need to be a teacher to chat like this. And they speak Arabic, and I'm interested in Arabic. So they tell us a bit of Arabic, and it's all on Zoom, you see, because of COVID, we all do Zoom all the time. So we can do this trading on the net and on Facebook and Messenger. A whole world has opened up just because, no, it's not that one.
Not that
That's
one.
a different one. It's Nell,
right.
N-E-L-L. Nell English, N-E-L-L-E-N, nellenglish.com. Anyway, that's the first website, and it's really good. If you wanted a website, and people in Edinburgh, I sort of deal a lot with the Muslims in Edinburgh, and they're interested now. And one of them, they run a business up here, and they want to get their websites built in Palestine because they support Palestine, and that's what everyone should do. We should buy everything we can from Palestine if you can. If you want a cartoon done, if you want graphics, you can do logos. Go to Palestine if you want to. I mean, sure enough, you can buy olive oil and that stuff, but there's a lot of stuff you can get on the net that can only be done on the net, like music production or bookkeeping or accountancy, or I don't know. There's obviously translation, but there's a lot of things that can be done on the net, and it's a big market, and they really have ambitions, and the Israelis can't do anything about it. It's brilliant because they can earn money without the Israelis controlling it, and that's brilliant because they're not. I mean, like 90% of Gaza lives on Qatar. That's it. You found it on public funding. They're 90% of them live on government aid. They'd like to earn their own money, but this way they can provide a service to us people in the West that need what they can do. And then you can support Palestine by buying stuff from them, and you give them money, you give them jobs, you give them self-respect. And, it's great. I just think we should all be doing it if you can.
That's brilliant, Pete. Can I just give a shout out to our people who are watching? If you're in the chat, please drop us a comment or a question if there's anything that you'd like to ask Pete. Maybe you'd like to get involved in a twinning campaign, maybe twin your county or your town with somewhere in Palestine and try to help them out that way. If you want to drop Pete a question, please put that into the chat.
I mean, there's a good chance that your town's already doing it, like Derby and places like that. They're already doing it. You just need to find out where the group meets and join in. If you want to expand your horizons and start speaking to Palestinians and start speaking to Arabs and start learning about a whole universe that we don't know about, because Edinburgh has never twinned with an Islamic city. I mean, there's all this Islamophobia, but we don't actually know anything about it. And the whole culture, Arabic culture, isn't what you see in the media. I mean, these are very friendly,
it's not.
interesting people.
I've been over to. I've spent a lot of time in Arab countries working and visiting, and I love the Arab countries. The Mediterranean countries. I lived in Cyprus for a long time, and their culture is very much influenced by the Middle East, the food, and the music and all that kind of thing. It's all influenced by the Middle East. I spent time in the UAE, in Kuwait, Tunisia. I worked for a while, and lovely people.
Yeah. I mean, I travelled from Morocco through Algeria. I hitchhiked across the Sahara down to Niger in Nigeria, and then back up through Central Africa and Cameroon, and then Sudan. And everywhere I met Arabs. People were really, really friendly, really genuine. You'd go to a restaurant and buy a meal, and then you go to pay for it, and they say, "Oh, you don't need to pay." And you say, "Why?" And they say, "Oh, well, someone's paid for you." So, woo. Well, I don't know, but people pay. It's like they love foreigners so much they'll buy you food. You'll never know who they are.
No, they do. It's one of the things they love to feed you, don't they?
Yeah, they're really into their food.
It's like, here, have more.
Yeah,
and you were invited over to New York to talk about the trading on the net, weren't you, recently?
Well, this was the Aloda. I mean, what's interesting in America is the Palestinians are very organized. I mean, they are. I have to say, I wasn't quite invited. I kind of invited myself. Well, I went to them and said, "Oh, I'd like to come. This is what I do." And they said, "Oh, yeah, why don't you speak then?" Because I would have gone anyway, just because I'm really interested in networks that are run by Palestinians. And in America, they're very different from Britain. I mean, the Palestinians I know in Britain are by and large frightened of having their residency taken away from them because they think, they've got a British government that's looking for an excuse to expel people. But in the US, it's not like that. People, the US is built of immigrants. I mean, everyone there is an immigrant apart from the Native American Indians. And what's amazing is in the US, the Palestinians have made common cause with Black Americans and with Native Indian Americans. So at this thing in New York, I was meeting people from all sorts of walks of life. I mean, Black guys, Black Islamic people, really passionate, really interesting, really friendly, and, great conversations. And the Palestinians, half the time people were speaking Arabic. I mean, I know a bit of Arabic and struggle my way through it. And we made, they videoed my speech, and you can see it on the net. It's www.tinyurl.com/paltalk, I think, or is it tiny1/paltalk? But so I got to speak. But the people that I met, I mean, a lot of very passionate, very bright Palestinians with a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of Zoom conversations with Palestine. And the guys I met that I loved the most, though, were the rabbis, were these two rabbis. And these are Neturei Carter. They're like the guy I was telling you, Aaron Cohen. They're very sort of fundamental Judaism, they're very strict, but extremely personable. And what is funny, because they're Yanks, because they're from New York, they speak like a train. They're proper Brooklyn, dilly, very fast and funny, but dressed in the whole Hasidic thing with the funny hat and the big sideburns and the, but really, really anti-Israel. I mean, they live, eat, sleep, and breathe Palestine. They care so much about it. And I want to get this guy to come over, Rabbi David Weiss. He's so funny and so good, such a good speaker, that I would like to get him to come to Britain. He wants to do a tour of the mosques here because he's a lot more outgoing than Aaron Cohen. I mean, this guy isn't shy.
Oh, poor Aaron, though. Aaron's getting on a bit now, though.
Yeah. But Aaron was good because he would foreground himself and he took big risks. And I think now he's got to the point where, he's still doing stuff, but, he's like 90 or something. Whereas this guy, Rabbi Weiss, he's 65 and he's still fit as a fiddle. He's the same age as me. And he's dead keen to go places and tell folk things. And I think what is amazing is that people in Britain have never seen anything like it. I don't think they will have, because he's just so funny and so fast.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen him on different clips here and there.
It's funny because I've got a flyer here. This is the Campaign Against Bogan and Anti-Semitism flyer. I better hold it the right way up. And I showed him the picture. I said, here's my flyer. And he says, hey, that's me on the front. You got me on your flyer. It's like, oh my God, it was him. It's like weird stuff. So, I mean, I met some brilliant people. I met the woman who did the flotilla, Greta Berlin. I said, you got a name like a porn star. She laughed, but she says it's not her first marriage. Second one. But anyway, she got organized the boats to Gaza, the flotilla. And it's like, nah. And she's given me a press list of all the journalists in the world, like 3,000 journalists. So now I can mail them all. I mean, just great people, really interesting people. They don't do so much on the twinning. And I was trying to get them to think about that. Los Angeles twin with Gaza, New York twins with Gaza. I mean, but I think it's a bit harder for them to conceive of it. Twinning is very much a sort of British type thing. Mm-hmm. But they've only got one city in America that's twinned with one in Palestine. So the British Friendship Palestine Twinning Network. The thing about the Zionists is they tend to occupy the top layers of government. I mean, they go for Westminster. 40% of the Labour Party are Friends of Israel, 80% of Tory MPs are Friends of Israel, but they don't bother with cities. They don't infiltrate city councils to the same degree. And even the same in America, they don't bother with city councils, municipalities. So this is a good place to get twinning going because they don't get all this pressure from Israel, usually. I mean, Israel steps in at the last minute and they threatened all our councillors with jail. They were meant to discuss twinning on the 29th of March. And the day before, Israel said, if you do this, even if you say it negatively, you're all going to prison. We'll make sure you 62 councillors get banged up. And it was like, ah! They took it off the agenda. But now I've got Michael Mansfield, who's this amazing Jewish lawyer. He's the best QC in Britain. And he's on my side. And he sent... there are two things. I handed myself into the police. Like I set up the Dean of Gaza Twinning Association, and we put the mayor of Gaza, Yusuf Sarraj, as the Yahya Sarraj, as our presidential honorary president. And I phoned up the cops and said, look, you're going to have to take me in because I'm a terrorist. And they said, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? I said, well, I'm anti-terrorism, I'm Hamas, And he said, well, you better send us an email. And they thought about it. And they said, well, twinning, there's nothing wrong with twinning. It's not supporting terrorism. And they came back and said, you're fine. You don't have a problem. And you've missed an L out of twinning.
Yeah, I've just noticed that. you carry on. It's hard to listen. And
so anyway, the police and then the council said, oh, Michael Mansfield, can you get him to give us an opinion? Of course, Michael said, Michael's Jewish and Michael hates Israel. He's an amazing man. He's 80 and he's amazing. He did all the big things, Grenfell Towers, Sunday, Bloody Sunday, Jose de Menezes, Stephen Lawrence. I mean, the McLibel bunch, every political campaign, every human rights issue, he's won. He's a genius. He's just brilliant. And he's happy to give me advice. And he said, well, told the council there's nothing wrong with twinning. You can twin with Gaza. There's no risk. So when you get Michael Mansfield telling you that sort of thing, you do listen. He's the king of human rights in Britain. Well, that's how Wikipedia described him. So there's a lot of, important people, really helpful people, really passionate people out there who will help you. And it's Bish Bunch Twinning with Palestine. They will help you as well. I mean, they've got resources for how you set yourselves up and how you organize things. And it's culturally, it's a real journey. If you're interested in food, you'll learn all about Arabic food and they'll learn about Scottish food or British food. It's just everything is different. And because these are an oppressed people, but are highly intelligent, well-educated, a lot of them speak good English, they're actually hungry for support, hungry to be recognized, hungry to share. And I think there's people in Britain, they're all very pro-Palestine, but they don't get out of bed to speak to real Palestinians and to real Arabs. And I think if you can, it's great. It's what you need to do. You need to kind of reach out to people who have been marginalised by Britain.
Yeah.
What better reason?
We've got a message there from Achajan. He says, from my hearing of and awareness of Zionist lobbying, etc., it's utterly teeing me off. I'll tell you, any influence into government, especially by other outfits acting that way, is simply wrong. Couldn't agree more, John.
Well, it's funny because they threatened all our councillors with jail, and the councillors were like, oh, this is outrageous. How can the UK Lawyers for Israel get away with this nonsense?
I know.
They're the guy. They got a Manchester. They got the curator of Manchester Art Gallery.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, these people. You think lawyers are bad. You think Zionists are bad. You put them together, and yet these Rottweilers who would do anything to get you fired.
Yeah, and who's funding them?
Well, the Israeli embassy probably. The Israeli embassy spends £1 million a year on trying
Ministry of Strategic
and,
Affairs.
And they reach deep. I mean, I do youth work. I do stuff with the Scouts. I got back out of youth work, and I sort of support local Scouts. Well, my kids went to the Scouts, and they've suspended me 2 weeks ago.
This is the Scouting Association, isn't it?
Yeah, the Scout movement suspended me. I wrote to Bear Grylls, you see. I've got a certificate from Bear on the wall, Chief Scouts Award, because I did their books. I've done their books for 10 years. I wrote, Dear Bear. Well, I suppose that's how you address him. Dear Bear. It was like, Dear Cuddly Bear. No, Dear Bear. And he says, I said, what about this? Do you support this? Because there's 2 Scout groups in Palestine. There's the Hebrew, which are the Israeli ones, and there's the Palestine groups. Which side are you on? You seem to be on the side of the of the Israelis because you've suspended me for criticizing Israel, And he said, oh, no, we don't get involved in live disciplinary cases. It's just a joke. I'm furious. I'm really furious that they can do this. And it's because the local Christian nutcase, who happens to be the district commissioner, I never realized Mark Hesketh was actually the treasurer for the Bethany Christian Trust. He's the one. He's probably a Christian Zionist. He's told me that I'm the one suspended. So now I can't
Well,
speak to the
yeah.
Scouts anymore. It's just
Yeah,
so
well, but
pathetic.
this is it about Zionism. It's nothing to do with. I've come to learn it's nothing to do with what religion you are, what race you are, or anything. It's an ideology. It's a racist ideology that many different people from different races, different religions, they hook themselves onto this ideology, and it is in my opinion a racist ideology, and
You see,
that's
I've got
what
this.
I've come to learn over the years.
I've written this very contentious paper that says Zionists aren't Jews. They didn't like that in Glasgow. I said, if you're a
Well,
Zionist, you
probably
can't be
not,
a
but
Jew. Because if you're a Jew, you should follow the Torah. And the Torah says that you're a diaspora. And if you go back to Israel, you've actually broken the Torah. So you're disobeying Jehovah because the Messiah hasn't come yet, has he? So what are you doing?
This is what Notori Carter believe as well, isn't it? This is what
But
they.
it really annoys them because you say you can't be the country, you can't be the Jewish state because you aren't Jews. I don't know what you are. You're immigrants because even 2,000 years ago you converted from paganism in Kazakhstan and then you moved into Eastern Europe. The Palestinians are the true Jews. I mean, they're the ones that are Semitic. They've been there for thousands of years. Some of them might have converted to Islam. Well, most of them have. There's some Christians.
Well,
But
I think
fundamentally, they are the people that ancestrally that is their land. I mean, I think I wouldn't kick the Zionists out. I would just say you have to live there as equals and understand that you have been guests for a long time because this is not your country.
I think that's what everybody would want. We want, I think they want peace as well. They want to live side by side peacefully.
Interesting. Even Hamas has got quite an interesting policy because they don't talk about killing all the Jews. They say at the moment, if you can withdraw to the 1967 frontiers, then we can have a truce. And you've got to allow Palestinians to go back to the villages that they were driven from, and you have to give them some compensation. So Hamas, I think, adopt a fairly reasonable position now, but Israel won't accept that. And Hamas are declared terrorists in the UK. But in fact, I can't see, as an occupied people, it's like saying the Ukrainians, you can't resist the Russians. It's like, Hamas are just doing, resisting occupation. Technically, according to 1982 United Nations declaration, any occupied people are allowed to use force, including military force, to resist occupation.
That's right. Pete, I want to we've only got 12 minutes left, and I want to talk about what you're up to this weekend because you've organised loads of different events, haven't you, this weekend?
Well,
and I'm actually going to be setting off Friday morning to go to one of Pete's events in Edinburgh. So if you do live in Edinburgh or you fancy somewhere great to go over the weekend, come to Edinburgh and celebrate with us, and I'll leave that to Pete to tell you.
The council give me money. I mean, I fall out with the council all the time, but they give me 500 quid to do a Jubilee thing, and it's at the end of COVID, and so it's like lots of old people in the area. So we're having a Jubilee party, but that's in the park. But the main thing that I'm excited about is this Twinning with Gaza, which has really got nothing to do with the Jubilee. You can see the flyer. We're having a concert on Friday night in Princess
Hold
Street
it up
Gardens.
to the camera, Pete.
Yeah, it's called the Gig for Gaza.
Gig for Gaza.
And it's got 4 bands playing, 4 great bands.
And just tell us where it is. It's at
Princess Street Gardens. It's right in the city centre. Just get out Waverley Station. You're about 1 minute from Princess Street Gardens. It's right under the castle, so it's the biggest public space in the city. And I've hired it for the night. And we've got 4 bands and a big sound system. We've got the Jennifer Ewan Band, the Stoned Holy Rollers, Junkman's Choir, and Suffragitsu. And it's free. Well, and then you can throw money in the bucket for the Medical Aid for Palestine people. And we've got Tommy Shepherd, MP. Tommy Shepherd's brilliant. He's a SNP guy, but he's supported us from the beginning. And there's it's brilliant. And Philippa Whitford, another SNP MP. She worked in Gaza as a doctor. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn knows these people, and he supports them too, because this is a great, when you have politicians that'll just say, that's a good thing to do. Twin with Gaza, it's a good thing to do. That's a very brave politician that will come out. Even Ian Murray, our own MP, which surprised me because he was part of Chris's downfall. he came out and said, "Oh, I think twinning with Gaza is good." Deirdre Brock. So there's MPs and politicians that do see the point of reaching out. So having this twinning with Gaza, I'm hoping to get a few hundred people. I've put out 7,000 flyers. I've actually managed finally to get an Edinburgh Live to cover it, but the usual suspects. I mean, the BBC said, "Oh, that's interesting." They wouldn't cover it. They won't. And even the other, the local Scotsman, you won't touch it. Herald hate anything to do with Palestine.
Well, we'll be there with our gazebo.
Yeah,
we'll be
yeah.
giving out flyers.
And the other thing is we're doing this other thing about the tourism tax.
We are. And it's a
a
resist
new
campaign. We've got our name on it.
This is to do with tourism tax. Get the taxes, get the tourists to pay for your city centre repairs. You see, because there's big cuts in government. They're going to, in Scotland, they're going to £3.5 billion. I mean, the Tories are just getting out of this. They're going to be a lot more cuts coming. And our argument is, well, we've wanted tourism tax for years, but we've never got anywhere because the hotel lobby always jump in and say, "Oh, you're frightening off the tourists." But most of Europe has tourist taxes, and if you go to Brussels, Paris, you pay an extra couple of euros a night and you don't notice it because most of the time you're going on holiday, you're having a splurge anyway. So another sort of 50 quid isn't going to kill you. But that's what we want, is we want to get a tourism tax, because that would bring enough money in. It would stop you being so dependent on Westminster, stop you being so dependent on Boris and Rishi Sunak, allow your council to try and improve the city and make it nice for tourists. But they can't do it at the moment. They certainly can't do it in Scotland, and the legislation's not there. So I've managed to persuade Resist to support this campaign where we go around getting tourists to sign up on the Scottish Parliament website saying they support a tourist tax. And it would be great if we can get 1,000 tourists with foreign names, because anyone from anywhere in the world can sign on the Scottish Parliament. And they all got their names up in the Scottish Parliamentary website forever. I mean, what a better souvenir.
What's the name of the link for the petition?
Well,
so that everyone on here can sign on.
They can. It's tinyurl.com restrict cuts Edina.
Tiny
resist cuts Edina. Yeah.
Tiny URL.
So tinyurl.com/resist cuts Edina.
tinyurl.com. Is there a forward slash? Yeah.
Resist cuts Edina.
How do you spell Edina?
Edina. It's the old Latin name for Edinburgh.
Edina.
So it's just another way of organising a way to resist the cuts, which aren't just about complaining, but you're actually trying to do something that involves getting, making your own money, because tourists will come to your country, come to your city, even if they have to pay a quid a night, but why not use that money to make the city nicer, make it nicer for them, and you get more tourists.
I think it's a good initiative. So if you're watching tonight,
and the good thing is as well, the SNP support, all the parties support it, so we don't have a problem with alienating other parties. We can draw people in from all places.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're watching tonight, or you're watching on replay, or if you're watching or listening to it on the podcast, so if you just put in the link tinyurl.com/resist cuts Edina, that's Edina, and you can sign Pete's petition to try and get a tourism tax going in Edinburgh.
At this point, that's just a place to register your interest. At the moment, the Parliament and I are still arguing about the petition, because I did put in the petition a week ago, but they said I haven't phrased it right. So I've got to change it. I mean, what I've got on the flyer is correct. And we've got 1,000 of these to start handing out on Friday night. Because if we get 500 people coming to the gig for Gaza, and you're going to be doing a stall for Resist, there's a good chance you get lots of new members. Because a lot of people are very pissed off with the politics we've got. They want to see change. And the idea is that we kind of use this as a recruiting ground, because we've only got 7 Resist members in Scotland.
And we need lots more.
We need more. And I think people are curious. They're very curious. And this is a good opportunity. We're just tying it up to an issue which people in Scotland can't say no to, and hopefully get young people joining, or people who are interested in alternative politics to join. Because I think we're pushing at an open door. I mean, so many people won't vote anymore because they just see no point. But I think we can
Well, they
reason.
don't know exactly. They don't see any point. They've lost all faith in politics and politicians. But we want to do something about that, and it's not about Chris Williamson, as he will say that. It's not about me. It's about the fact that people, ordinary people, we're pissed off. We've lost confidence, and you know, most people don't bother to go out and vote because those people are not representative of their thoughts and beliefs and values and morals. So we want to speak up for the ordinary people, you know, in the street, ordinary people who are fed up with the corruption, fed up with these people who think they have the right to be in power and don't represent them, fed up with war, you know, fed up with you know, all the money that's been wasted during the COVID pandemic, and you know, and ruining our NHS.
I've got a great policy that I hope Resist adopts, and that's for everyone to get taxed at 100% that earns more than I do. Because I think if you taxed everyone at 100% that earned more than I did, then we'd all be equal, and then people could get telephone number, you know, salaries, and people just work for the status anyway, but they pay the whole lot on tax. So they say I'm earning 100k a year, but in fact we're still only taking home 30 because they're. But I think we should be taxing the rich to death, and that would make it a fair country.
You know, well, let's look at this 400 quid that Rishi Sunak has said he's going to give people towards paying their bills. That money is not yours. It's going to go straight back to the energy companies. So the energy companies are actually going to be making more money, which will in turn go to their shareholders. That is not the answer, Rishi Sunak. The answer is to bring these companies back under national control where they belong. And they need to start doing that now, not giving us bloody loans to pay back or giving us 400 quid. Oh yeah, because that's not coming to us. That's going to the bloody billionaire class again. Sorry for swearing, folks, but got my soapbox out there. Got me started.
No, I mean, I like, that's why I like Resist. I mean, it's what you might call old Labour, you know, or it's also got Corbynism, but it stands for values that I grew up with, you know, back in the 70s and the 80s. You know, it was a great quality of life we had back in the heyday when there was a lot, you didn't have these ridiculous extremes of wealth. People were far more balanced, and, you know, there weren't too many rich and poor. There was just a better society. I think people now have got a poorer standard of living, really. Folk don't realise it, but back then...
absolutely. And the youngsters, they can't see a future.
You can't get a flat. There's no way, and getting accommodation's a bloody joke. I mean, like, I paid £7 a week for my flat in Bristol, you know. Now you wouldn't get a flat for less than, you know, 300 quid a week.
I've just been to see. Well, I moved my son's girlfriend from Liverpool to Preston. He's at university up there, so he's living in this student accommodation. It's a terrace house. There's mold everywhere. It's absolutely disgusting. He can't get the landlord to do anything. It's freezing cold. He's had to try and seal up all the windows in his bedroom because all the cold was coming in, and he's having to pay loads and loads of money for his bills to try and keep warm. And the amount of money that landlord is getting, he's getting about, I think it's over £1,000 a week because it's a multiple occupancy house. It's bloody ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there should be rent. Back then, we had rent tribunal. I mean, we were paying £9 a week, and we went to the rent tribunal and they cut it to £7 a week. I mean, rent tribunals were great because they'd look at the property and say that landlord's charging you too much. Of course, Maggie abolished them. We should bring them back straight away.
Bring it back, Pete. That's what I say. Bring it back. And with that, Pete, we're at the top of the hour. So I want to thank you so much for coming on this evening. I'm going to be crashing at Pete's house on Friday, folks. So I'm looking forward to seeing Pete. And
I've got you some haggis.
Oh, haggis and tatties, I hope.
Yeah, neeps. They don't use potatoes. It's turnips, I'm afraid.
That's fine. I like turnips. Yeah, neeps and tatties. Yeah, that's fine. So all good. So I'm really looking forward to Gig for Gaza on Friday. And yes, Shirley, I will do a Facebook Live. So I will try and do some Facebook Lives whilst I'm there throughout the evening. So thanks for joining us, Pete. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I was really nervous tonight, actually, because I'm here on my own. There's no Gaz, the producer. There's no Lizzie. And I didn't know whether I was going to do it all right. So I hope you all enjoyed the show this evening. And
just to say, if you go to www.twingaza.com, the website, you can watch the YouTube. But on the next morning, we'll have the concert on YouTube. It'll be quite good quality. You can enjoy it from then. It's a 3-hour concert if you want to hear some Scottish music and hear some interesting pro-Palestine politics. But it's mostly music.
That's
so that'll
great.
be on. If you go on the twingaza.com, the Gig for Gaza post, you can get the link to the YouTube channel.
Fabulous. Well, thanks, Kevin. Thanks, John. Thanks, Shirley, Jarlath, everybody, Tiggs, Kevin. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this evening. And we'll see you next week. Good night.
Bye.
Let me try and do the outro now.
Oh.